So I'm placing my hands on my heart and taking in that deep breath of love and gratitude. I'm so grateful for this time to come together with these beautiful souls, grateful for the love that we are and the love that we share. Grateful for the teachings of Jesus and teachings in A Course in Miracles. Grateful for all of our teachers here on the earth and in the heavenly realms. We ask them to join us now, leading and guiding us, supporting and blessing this call, blessing each and every person here that's listening now and all those that will listen later. And we're grateful that we get to share the benefits of the love that we are with everyone because we are one with them. In grace and gratitude, we let it be, and so it is. Amen. Yeah, I was sitting here in front of my computer all ready to go and got involved in a work thing, and before you know it, oh my Lord, it's 2 minutes after. All right, so chapter 10, the decision to forget. Who would like to begin our sharing? Go ahead, Carla.
Okay, the first line. Unless you first know something, you cannot disassociate it. And what I was shown is that until we recognize that the thoughts, the ego thoughts, the pattern of behavior we've energized for so long, how can you let go of it? How can you? And I think that's so valuable. That's the divine alarm clock. It's it, and it's so challenging to me. Can I tell a short story? Yes, thank you. So I have mice. It's the second time in 2 years I spent $1,200. I'll try to say it real concisely. So I spent $1,200 to seal my foundation from them, and they're back again. And so, and they came out and they sealed again. But what they did is they sealed the mice inside that or here they can't get out, right? Not that they want to, right? And I was trying to trap them, and for some reason that particular mouse or those mice didn't like peanut butter, and it worked last time anyhow. So I'm like doing my best to stay peaceful. So and this goes back to how can I associate that I thought that the mice were not helpful, right? And I just let go. I'm like, oh, I realized this is not being helpful, to energize that this is bad and wrong. And so I'm like, okay, I guess they're everywhere in all my dishes, and I can't cook anything. I can't eat anything without washing it first. And so I just went out and bought something, bought a whole big bin to put stuff in to eat. And once I just accepted that that was just how it was, a miracle happened. I did something and the mouse was running across my coffee table, but 8 feet away. I'm like, trying not to get disturbed again. And it jumped in a box. And I kicked that box out the door, and one mouse is gone. So what I'm saying is, what are the odds that that mouse was hanging out in the kitchen all the time, and for some reason it came into the room that I was in, and it was hopping across the table, and it jumped in the box, and I'm like, and I thought, they'll be gone. Mice are gone. They're fast. There's no sense in walking over there, but I got the sense to walk over there, and it was in that box, and I kicked it outside. So what I'm saying is, I recognize that as I noticed my thinking for 10 days, nothing was happening. That day, I changed my thinking. I recognized, you don't have to recognize everything, just have to recognize the feeling that you're feeling and give it up. And that's what story is a perfect example of that thing. Once I recognized that I was choosing to judge it, and I let it go, and I just accepted that's what was happening, and just said, I just, anyhow, that's what I say. So I'm repeating myself. So, thank you. That's my story.
Thank you, Carla. That's awesome. Like he did it so that you could see that he was in the box, so that you had the opportunity to kick him outside. That's awesome. What are the chances? Go ahead, Leslie.
That is awesome, Carla. The first, what I was thinking is, oh, maybe God wants her to get a cat. Maybe a cat would be a wonderful companion for Carla, and it could get all of her mice. But that's awesome, and it is a great example of thinking, changing circumstances. So great job. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you, Leslie. Anybody else have anything to share? Any comments or any thoughts about something else that we read? Yeah, go ahead again, Leslie.
Okay, if I must, I didn't take too many notes on this chapter, but I did write a few things. One was paragraph 3, sentence 1. To remember is merely to restore you to your mind what is already there. And then paragraph 5, sentence 1, I really like this, that all attack is self-attack. That's something that we all know already. And it can be nothing else. When you attack, you are not remembering him. Not because he is gone, but because you are actively choosing not to remember him. And then this was my favorite, sentence 6 in paragraph 5. If you realize the complete havoc this makes of your peace of mind, you would not make such an insane decision. I just thought that was so perfect, because when we attack somebody with our thoughts or our words or our actions, we know we're attacking ourselves, and that is the best way to lose our peace of mind. And when we go into the day with the intention of keeping our peace of mind, it's much easier to remember. I wish I had a cute mouse story to say, but I don't. So that's it for me. Not that Carla probably thinks is a cute mouse story. It sounds like it's very expensive, and it could be a little frustrating, I'm sure. And I'm sure there were lots of lessons going along those 10 days. So it sounds cute to us, but I'm very grateful that I'm not the one going through it.
Thank you, Leslie. Go ahead, Phil.
And by the way, the mouse story is not cute if you are really dealing with it. Because I know firsthand how frustrating and irritating it can be. It almost sucks all your energy till you find it. Oh, and what I wanted to, it's on my book, it's on the first paragraph, and says, dissociation is nothing more than a decision to forget. What has been forgotten then appears to be fearful, but only because the dissociation was an attack on truth. And that was very powerful for me, because, one thing that I noticed, that dissociation is nothing more than a decision to forget. And when I am really triggered, sometimes I I recognize I don't want to really react this way, but I want to be so right that, I just want to forget the rest, even though it says, hey, you can choose love here. And then I will rationalize with it and say, if I choose love, then they don't even know what is going on. So I have to say this. And it does not even come loving. And I think that was like, for me, wow, that is what I'm doing when I'm holding my trigger before love, or trying to make somebody wrong, or feeling like I have to tell, otherwise they would never know about it, how it makes me feel. But I can still choose to say what I'm saying with love, but no, I will choose how I'm feeling it. Thank you.
What page are you reading from, Phil? Because I have the purple book.
Oh, you have the purple book? Oh,
Yeah, and I don't have my other
okay.
iPad.
It's on page 353, and it is,
Okay.
353, and it is second lines, half of the
Okay.
second line. Yeah.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Go ahead, Mitzi, and then Carla.
Thank you. I listened to last week's talk this morning before I did this reading, and it was very powerful to hear everybody's learning, all the things that they were learning, the forgiveness letters, the frustration with wanting to respond a particular way. I've had a very unloving relationship with time. It has just really wreaked havoc on my life for such a long time. And it is only recently that I had some revelations about my relationship to time, and about that there isn't time. I'm not going to miss out on anything. So I don't have to worry about that piece anymore, about getting there, because I'm going to miss out on something. I'm going to get every single good thing that God has for me. So that has been something that I could let go of a lot, because it has really interfered with a lot of relationships that I've had, me wanting to be on time. And now I realize I'm never late. I'm never really late, And sometimes it would be about that I would want to show up and be perceived as a particular image. So I saw that I was trying to hold this image also there. That's what would be part of it. So those things started being stripped away. I did a forgiveness letter around it, and from the things that I heard people saying last week when there was discussion. I know Robin was the one who had initially brought it up, but identifying what my false belief is around these issues here, because everything is a self-attack. And one of the things that I realized was that every single relationship is the same relationship. I don't have a different problem with this person or that person. All my relationships have really been the same relationship, and it's me relating with them. So all the problems in every relationship has always been something that came from my perceptions or my forgetting of who I am, not knowing, not remembering. So now that I'm really convinced that my function is to be forgiving, and to be free, and to be happy. I realized just this weekend particularly how powerful, how freeing, how joyful it was to realize that there's no time in forgiving. There's absolutely no time in forgiving. I was with a group, and there was someone that I'd kind of expected a different response from. And I said, what am I forgetting? Because I recognized my irritation or my uneasiness. And I realized that I was forgetting that there's no time in forgiveness, that I didn't have to wait for them to respond differently. I didn't have to really wait for me to do anything really different, except in that moment to love them and love myself. I just loved myself through it right then. I was just like, I switched my attention, and I realized I was not loving myself by projecting onto this other person something. And it didn't really matter what it was. I didn't even ask myself, what is it? I just said, what do I need to remember to do now? And it was to love myself. And then the rest fell away. It just fell away. It was magical. It fell away. I had not experienced that before. And then I remembered something that my first husband's foster mother told him when he thought someone didn't like him when he was a little boy. And she said, everybody loves you. They just might not know it right now. And he believed that, because I always admired how when I would think someone did something, awful, he would not even see it. And I would be like, how can you not see that? But he believed that everybody really likes him, And I thought it was kind of Pollyanna way of being. And I realized that's so not true. They just might not realize it now. And so do I have to wait until they realize it to just love them? Do they even need any forgiveness? No. I don't have to wait for anyone to behave the way I think they ought to behave. I can just go ahead and love them now, because there is no time. And that was a huge revelation, a huge burden off of me. And I hope that I can continue to walk in that every day going forward. But as everyone has mentioned on here, some days don't go like that. But I will try to remember. I don't have to try. I know that I will remember at some point. I'm just hoping it'll be sooner than later. Thank you. And I love all of you guys, by the way.
Thank you, Mitzi. We love you too. Love your new haircut too. It's really cute. Go ahead, Carla.
Well, I didn't realize I was unmuted. So, I had something I was going to share, but I wanted to respond to Mitzi. And that, what am I going to say? I think that was really a revelation, and I wanted to share something with you that was helpful to me. But it's very, very. It's been 2 years in really starting to recognize it more fully, and that's it. I used to think that I judged. I, the true self of me, the spirit self, the part of God in me, doesn't judge ever. But I, the Carla self, chooses which thoughts I energize. Okay? And thoughts are offered to me by God, my God self, or the pattern of thinking that I've energized for a long time, which is Jennifer calls the ego thought system. So as thoughts are offered to me, I recognize more fully with the divine alarm clock, the upset. I feel into the thought, which thoughts I choose to energize. Now, life just seems to flow so fast. Sometimes I forget, and I'm like, okay, I choose again. I love myself while you're speaking. Whatever I choose, it's fine. And so I've started recognizing more fully, but it seems like it's taking a while. But it's going. It's happening, and I know that I'm recognizing when I'm upset, I am aligning my will, not my will. I'm aligning with the ego thought system, and I'm just recognizing it. Oh, that I'm grateful for even recognizing those thoughts, because how can I choose again? How can I choose love if I recognize when I'm choosing unlovingly? You know, it's like what you're shared. Is it? And I've started saying, "Thank you. Show me another," because I was shown the judgments, and I was shown the ego thought system, which Jennifer's talked about getting rid of however many. It was a 5 a day. I don't remember how many a day. You know, I seem to take them back. So I don't know if I give it a 5 a day, but I'm practicing just recognizing, and that's goes to align with what I was going to share before. I have on my wall that I put in the WhatsApp group that I'm interested in remembering what I've forgotten, and that's been on my wall for 3 years, and I am remembering more fully all the time. So that's what I want to share. I had to go, and thank you, and I want to respond to you, Mitzi. I thought it was really great, and have a blessed week.
Thank you, Carla. Happy Thanksgiving, honey.
Thanks.
I would like to share, based on what Mitzi and Phil were sharing earlier in paragraph 4, the last sentence, where he says, if you recognize that you are part of God, you will understand why it is that you always attack yourself first. And the thought that came to me when I read that was, the reason why I'm always attacking myself first is because what I'm thinking is that I'm blaming God for what I dislike in my life. And I'm attacking myself, not because I feel guilty, but because I'm attacking him, and I am God. And I thought, well, that's just crazy talk. Why would I do that? Why would I do that? So I was so grateful to have that realization when I read that. Yeah. Corinne, did you have your hand up? Oh, somebody else have their hand raised they'd like to share? Robin, and then Diane. I can't unmute you, Robin. Sorry, honey.
Hello.
Hello.
Good morning, everybody. I just love seeing each and every one of you. It is so sweet. Thank you for being here. That first paragraph, and the second sentence, second or third, where it says, what has been forgiven, and someone has already shared this, what has been forgotten then appears to be fearful, but only because the dissociation is an attack on the truth. And my realization is that things that I have wanted to forget, my mistakes in the past, my example is becoming an unwed mother at age 19. And certainly I have spiritually matured and grown through holding this part of my life. And I realized in reading that I've gotten a lot of the guilt and shame has lessened on that. Certainly there's still a little, but oh my goodness, it's just hardly any. But what I realize is every time I think of my 19-year-old self, there's this deep sorrow and heartbreak that I'm still carrying. And I never love her. And so that last sentence in that paragraph, when what you have dissociated is accepted, it ceases to be fearful. So on my continuing journey of what does this mean in my life, why that happened, and is to start loving my 19-year-old self, who was this quiet and just a good kid. And so that was really powerful and very enlightening. So thank you so much. Yeah.
Wow, thank you, Robin, for sharing that. I love your 19-year-old self. Thank you. Diane.
Thanks, Robin, for your heartfelt share and that awareness of wanting to love your 19-year-old self, and that awareness will make it happen. And I wanted, and maybe this will be helpful as well. I think I've shared it with you on a prayer call, but and this was given to me by another prayer partner, which for me has been really powerful and very pertinent to the decision to forget. And for me, it's, again, like so many people have said, how do we remember when we're in this kind of energy of forgetting who we are and forgetting the truth? And it's lesson 144. My mind holds only what I think with God. And that for me is really powerful, because I really want my aspiration this year. I kind of redid my AIGs, which those who are in my class I think have heard, but my aspiration this year is to see with divine eyes and hear with divine ears and speak with divine speech. And I really want to hold that aspiration throughout the day. And yet I forget. And I forget that I want to hold only the thoughts of God in my mind. So, I mean, it's just what everybody has said. And I love this conversation because I feel like we're all sharing our experience with remembering and forgetting and remembering again. And I think our growing awareness of the desire to remember is going to get us all there. Thank you.
Yes, let's go there together. And I love that lesson, Diane. That's the one that got me through when Rudy was in the hospital having his transplant surgery. I'm sure you've heard me say that, how I was pacing back and forth in his hospital room, cursing and saying that at the same time. In my mind, not out loud. I didn't curse out loud. Yeah. I think they might have called security on me if I would have been saying it all out loud. But yeah, it's really powerful to affirm that my mind holds only what I think with God. It's been very powerful for me. Who else would like to share? Kareem.
Well, I just see the sentence, which is the same thing, saying the same thing in a way. To remember, on the third paragraph, to remember is merely to restore to your mind what is already there. And I kind of had a realization this week also. We're in Florida. We came yesterday. My husband has been very cooperative. Everything's been running so beautifully, and I've been in a good place. And it felt kind of familiar. And I said, I remember there was a time that I didn't even believe in evil at all. You know, I just didn't believe it. It was just the way I was. So when Mitzi mentioned Pollyanna, you know, I didn't even know what that was, but I know that people used to kind of accuse me of being that or tell me things similar to that. And I think that I, you know, tucked away that Pollyanna attitude that I had. And with time and life and all the things that happened to me and all the difficulties in my marriage and everything, I remember one day I was suffering so much in my marriage. I said, wow, that must be what evil is. So it's like I took back the belief in evil. And then I kind of grabbed onto it again, you know, maybe not exactly, you know, literally, but still, I knew that, okay, it must exist because, you know, things wouldn't feel so bad, you know. So I think I stayed with that for quite a long time. But I think, you know, as the grace of God would have it, there's still little things that would happen over time that, let's say, it was confusing at that time because, you know, seeing that something good is still trying to reach me, you know. But through the Course in Miracles, it's just like really explaining a lot of things to me. And it's helping me have that realization that it's just restoring what I already had in my mind. And I just have to keep practicing that self-love, which is the answer to everything. And yeah, so thank you, Mitzi, and everybody else that shared it. Really, it's what it is. So I think that if we can really just buy into that enough, that whenever things get bad, we just remember that and just keep going until we don't even have to use it anymore. So thank you.
Thank you, Kareem. Would anybody else like to share? Penelope or Rand or Marjorie? We haven't heard from you yet. If you have anything. Go ahead, Rand.
Hi, I'm just absorbing and like a sponge what everybody else is saying this morning. So Thank you all for your comments. They're all illuminating for me. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Penelope.
Yeah, for some reason I'm holding back talking about this. I'm just going to talk about it anyway. I haven't really quite figured it all out myself yet. Yeah, it's really interesting listening to everybody. I mean, one of the parts for me of this section, it was really the last part, which is it is this vigilance that makes you afraid to remember. If I go back just a little bit further, by deciding against your reality, you've made yourself vigilant against God and his kingdom. And it is this vigilance that makes you afraid to remember. So when I read that, my kind of first thought was, well, how can I do it faster? Which I guess is possibly getting into the ego. Just some things that have like happened this night today, and this morning I actually caught myself. It's the first time I've had this thought so fast and so clear, and it kind of like began yesterday. I've got some visual disturbances going on in my left eye, and I've got some history of having retinal tears in the past. So it's like, is that what's happening? And this morning I caught myself thinking, I'm being punished for everything that I've done. I have never ever had that thought so clearly, that I'm being punished. So I thought, right, need to hand that thought over first of all. And the other thing was this sense of, oh, gee, this is an inconvenience. I'm going to have to contact my optometrist. And yeah, if it's a tear, then I'm going to have to go and have it lasered again. And it was like this inconvenience. And it's like, I really don't want to deal with this, which I guess that's probably partly why I didn't really want to talk about it, because I'm thinking, well, actually, that's not very loving to have that thought. And then I didn't want it to interfere with me teaching this morning. And I didn't want it to interfere in me being on the class now. And I didn't want it to interfere with anything. So it's not, I don't normally do it like this, but I actually gave it to Spirit, and I actually specified and asked Spirit, okay, so I'd really like to be on the call at 5 o'clock my time, UK time, Spirit. I really don't want to miss the call, and I don't want it to affect me missing the call later on this evening as well. And then I felt this little glimmer of guilt of asking for almost saying like specifics. And so I then added for the highest and best, which I would normally do anyway. I would normally just ask for the highest and best outcome. I wouldn't ask for specifics like that. And so what I was asking for is, if I made the call to my optometrist, that my optometrist didn't say, oh, you need to come in straight away or sometime this afternoon or whatever it might be. The irony was I rang at 2:05 my time, so 3 hours approximately before the call. And he hadn't called me back after like a couple of hours. And I was like, really trusting he's going to call me back. At 5 minutes before this call started, he called me. It took me 3 minutes to speak to him so that I could actually be on the call 2 minutes before the call. So I was actually the first one on the call today. So it's kind of, as I'm talking, there's like a few things in here of, well, that wasn't very loving when I was, oh, this is an inconvenience. He's actually said to me on the phone, yes, he thinks it's better if he sees me because of my past history, and he doesn't think it's urgent. So I've set up a time on Thursday, which is great, because that's like going to work out for me. It means, because it has to put drops in my eyes to fully dilate the pupil, so it means I can't drive, and that's fine, so I don't need to drive. And it's that whole thing of seeing, just in this, it's the trust. And even doing it like, I actually thought by actually specifying, and I really would like to be on this call, that was almost beseeching. I think that's probably what I was kind of thinking. So that's my share for today. Maybe somebody can just add anything that might help me understand it a bit better.
Yeah, thank you, Penelope. The first thing that came to my mind is that you're getting 2020 vision, what your preferences are. And you're feeling worthy enough to ask for them. My preference is to be on these 2 calls. My preference is that it not be inconvenient for the things that I would really love to do. And that doesn't feel like beseeching at all. That's just a preference. I enjoy these things. I feel like they help fill my soul, and God knows that. So that didn't feel beseeching to me at all. Yeah. And absolutely will hold you in my prayers for your eye, because I know how scary that can be. And Phil, and then Diane.
Thanks, Linda. That's helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome, sweetie.
I think thanks for sharing, and I really feel this line that came up for me, and I wanted to share, and I said, no, I'm not going to share. I've already done it. And now after Penelope shared, I thought this is so fitting, because it says, nothing is beyond his will for you, but signify your will to remember him, and behold, he will give you everything but for your asking. And I guess somewhere it says we don't ask enough. And thank you for sharing and helping me that to ask. We are not demanding, we are asking, and we are told to ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Beautiful. Diane. Oh, there you are.
Thanks, Penelope and Phil. I love that we are told to ask. And I just wanted to say that I have been in a state in my past of a lot of beseeching, and I would almost say begging prayers to God. So I kind of understand that. I don't want to go back and flip into that past behavior. And in terms of your what you shared, Penelope, it just reminded me of some of the calls I've been on with Jennifer, where she uses very strong language like, I declare, I call forth. And I've kind of heard her sometimes working with someone who, say, perhaps desired to move into a new home. And Jennifer would kind of demonstrate how to go about discussing with the Holy Spirit. And a lot of times very strong language around declaring and calling forth what it is you would like in your life. And very clear. Now, hope I'm not sounding like I'm giving advice, but I'm just remembering being in calls with Jennifer and hearing her talk like that. And I'm like, oh, wow, that sounds really strong. I'd be like, oh, please, God, like from a really small place. Whereas Jennifer really opens herself up, in my experience, to greatness. And she declares things and calls them forth in a very commanding way. And she has said many times, I'm sure other people have said that, heard this, that she's very strong with her egoic thought system and will just like in a very strong fashion say, absolutely not, I will not have those thoughts. And so I have to say, I've always admired that in Jennifer. It's not quite my personality. I have that kind of like meek and mild personality, but I like to adopt in my own self a bit more of that stronger language and to not not to give up those thoughts of I'm begging and beseeching. And if I'm begging, which I have in the past, it would be like, oh, please, God, please, 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 give me what it is I desire, as opposed to now calling forth what it is I truly desire, and at the same time releasing the outcome. And that is such a masterful, in my thoughts, a very masterful way of living. And I do believe Jennifer demonstrates that to us all the time, how she's able to stand in a very strong fashion, calling forth what she desires, and at the same time releasing the outcome. And it's such a beautiful balance, and I feel so grateful to have her demonstrating that to us in so many times throughout the year. So I just wanted to share that piece with you, Pale, because I know I've been there with, oh my God, I'm asking for too much, but she doesn't. She kind of owns it, and I just admire that in her. So thanks. I hope that didn't come across as advice or anything. I just wanted to.
No, thank you, Diane. Penelope, and then Leslie.
Yeah, Diane, thank you. No, you didn't come across as giving advice, because I've listened to Jennifer when she's declared and etc. And it's interesting because I've started doing that with some aspects of my life. So for instance, this morning I actually was declaring, Spirit, just take this fear, because there was fear there about my eye. You know, because I know what it was like before when I had to have it lasered a couple of times, and all the kind of things that can be. But it was, I think the thing is probably what maybe was I wasn't feeling completely aligned. I think because I was still like attaching, there was still like this, a little bit of residue of fear in the background. I didn't feel completely centered when I was asking. And so there was kind of, it almost created like a little bit of confusion in my mind of what am I doing here? But I know it's something I need to address. And I think also it's that it is highlighting for me, it's having that confidence to state my preferences, like Linda was referring to, and just be clear about my preferences, and that there's nothing wrong in being clear about my preferences. But it was that there was almost like a little bit of a dialogue probably happening in my head of, well, this can't be very loving. If you prefer to be on a call like this than addressing this, the thing with your eye. And I think there was a bit of that going on, but I wasn't really completely aware of it. So thank you, Diane. And thank you everyone for listening. Oh, and can I just say quickly, so I don't forget, happy Thanksgiving Day to everyone for Thursday.
Go ahead, Leslie. Thank you, Penelope.
I just wanted to say, Penelope, that I thought it was really neat that you recognized that it was not self-loving to be inconvenienced. Because I have so been there before. It's like, oh, really, God, I don't have time for this, you know? And the loving thing is to take care of your eye and be on the call if it works out, you know? So I thought that was great self-awareness. So good job. Pat yourself on the back. You did good. And just really fast, I did have one little miracle I forgot that I wanted to, well, I just remembered it actually. Our stove had a little problem. We kept getting this error message. We could not use it. My husband fooled around with it, you know. He got the book out. He didn't call the guy. I kept saying, call the guy. He didn't call the guy. He looked at the manual and he called the number and he ordered this part, which was almost $300. Again, I didn't lose my peace. I was very proud of myself. I'm like, okay, he took care of the problem. It's not going to be here till December 9th. Breathe in, breathe out. It's okay. Life is good. Seriously, not losing my peace. A couple days ago, he's fooling around with it again. And miraculously, the oven is working now. So I don't know if the cats, because our cats they do the counter surfing. So I don't know if they push something and lock something or what happened. Well, the same day the part came. So the part came even though it wasn't December 9th, but we cooked 2 different things in it and the oven is working beautifully. So Scott called the part number and we got the UPS thing, and so we're sending it back. So I don't know, the oven is working, and I thought it was going to cost $280, and it didn't cost a penny, and I didn't get mad at my husband, and I didn't lose my peace. So I think that was a miracle. So that's it.
Absolutely a miracle. Thank you for that. Yeah, I was thinking too, Penelope, when I think you were reading it at the very end of the section where he says, deciding against your reality, you have made yourself vigilant against God and his kingdom. And it is this vigilance that makes you afraid to remember him. And I just thought, oh yeah, just like a defiant child, just like a defiant toddler or a defiant teenager, like, you can't tell me what to do. And I thought, how funny is that? How funny is that? We have this loving God that wants nothing but our happiness for us. And we're going to go, yeah, you can't tell me what to do. It's just silly. Just silly how it works. Yeah. Anybody else have anything to share? Oh, go ahead, Mitzi. We're getting close to closing time here.
Okay. Well, I just wanted, there was something that tied in from last week's lesson to this lesson, and something that you said that, so the reality thing, sometimes from my understanding right now, is part of it is my reality of my history, my personal history, things I've done, things I don't want to remember, things that I remember, and I say without saying it, well, God, you can't really love me because there's this piece I'm hanging on to. Did you forget? Did you forget that I did this thing? You know, and of course I'm not talking in that language, but I'm just saying that's kind of the scenario here. And last week it was like, he didn't change his mind about us. He made us perfect. He loves us no matter what. There were no strings attached. Well, you know, it's okay, except this one thing. So we don't really have to be vigilant to remember all those things in the past that maybe we didn't feel was our best choice. You know, I think that's a little bit about what it's saying here. But the reality is that I can love myself. I can love my reality. God loves me. And my reality of my history doesn't make me unlovable, doesn't prove my unworthiness that I keep so often vigilant to resurrect. You know, so that's what I have to say. Anything more would just be rambling. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. I love you all. Okay. Whoops.
Go ahead, Robin.
Just quickly, Penelope, I loved that. I loved everyone's share, and I'm just repeating. But I think Jennifer clearly demonstrated to, even one day she said, demand it. Demand it. And I was like, demand it. But anyway, this idea of asking, this is my preference, this is what I would really love, I would really like this, and then, but I turn it over and let it go. That little routine just is so helpful, and I find that there's grace in that little prayer of asking for the preference and then letting it go. So the other thing I want to say, if you are a Fred Rogers fan, go see the movie. Welcome to the Beautiful Neighborhood. It is really it's all about forgiveness. It's a movie for adults. Mr. Rogers speaking to grown-ups to help us all come together in being kind and compassionate. And what I saw was this human being who practiced over and over again being loving and kind and compassionate, and seeing that he really was genuine that practice became second nature for him. And I saw that he wasn't a perfect person, and always put that first. Let me love this person in front of me now. My husband and I just really loved it. It was so sweet, and Tom Hanks did just the whole thing was done really beautifully. So, yeah.
Thank you, Robin. You're the second person I've heard that saw it that said it was a wonderful movie and recommended it. So Jennifer went and saw it with some friends. She loved it. So
thank you. I just want to say thank you also for that, because I may decide to go take my sister and see that while I'm here with her. So thank you. Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.
So I would like to continue in chapter 10 and do the section the God of Sickness, which I believe is section 3. Last week's was not section 3, it was section 2. So the God of Sickness. It's just 2 pages, 2.5 pages. So my reading today in Pathways of Light, Insights for lesson number 330. That means we only have 35 days left in this year. Woo! I will not hurt myself again today, is the lesson. I attack myself when I refuse to accept my true identity. I attack myself when I refuse to accept that God's will for me is my will. When I cut myself off from my source in order to have the impression that I am separate and alone, I am attacking myself. I would not hurt myself again today. Today, I would take one more step toward letting go of the false ideas of limitation and lack. Refusing to accept my own identity is painful. It creates anxiety and the feeling of lack and loss. Forgiveness is my function here. Today, I would practice choosing forgiveness or letting go of the false perceptions every time I am tempted to teach myself the ego's lesson in limitation and lack. Holy Spirit, today I would practice opening my mind to you all through the day. Today I would practice following your lead. I have followed the wrong teacher and I have been sorely mistaken. I have lost the awareness of my true identity, and I now know that you will help me return to the truth that I have never left today. Today I am willing to practice accepting God's gifts. Today I am willing to practice opening my mind to your healing perceptions. I will not hurt myself again today. My natural state, the only real state, is oneness with love, my creator. To not experience that unity and all the gifts that come with it, I must actively choose against it. I would only choose against it if I believed that this choice would give me something of greater value. The ego is the idea that it is possible to have something of greater value than all of God's love, all of his peace, and all of his joy eternally. Only insanity would believe this, and thus this world is insane. Insanity means being unaware of reality. To believe in this world, we must be unaware of reality. The ego offers us specialness, telling us that specialness, uniqueness, and independence is worth more than all of God's love. Every time we choose specialness over God's love, we are hurting ourselves. We are choosing to be cut off from our source of strength and power and peace and joy. It is not our Creator that cuts us off. It is our own denial of our source and of ourself that gives us the experience of being separate and alone. The ego teaches us that this is a good thing. It teaches us that this gives us autonomy, independence, and control. It does not tell us that this control is control of nothing, and that to be independent, we must give up our strength, our safety, and our peace. Gratefully, because we cannot change reality, we have the freedom in every moment to stop choosing against reality, capital R, and accept ourself, capital S, as love created it. The decision to choose insanity is not irreversible. The moment we made that choice, God placed in our minds his answer to lead us back to our home in him. God knows us as its own, changeless and unchangeable. He has left the light on for us to welcome us home. And even more, he has given us a guide to show us the way back to the light. Today, I will practice remembering that I remain as God created me. I am not a body. I am free to love without limit and accept love without limit. Thus will I open my heart and my mind to the experience of my wholeness and love. I will not hurt myself again today. I hurt myself when I forget who I am. If I perceive myself as suffering, I have made a choice to do so. It is within me to choose again, to draw from his power and his love, and remember that he shares that power and love with me, and therefore cannot suffer. I also have to be patient with myself and remember that this is a process. This is very important because too often I get frustrated, and it is only in fear that I begin to question the process. But today, I can let the process flow and step back, ask for guidance, and say to myself over and over, I will not hurt myself again today. Thank you, Father. Thank you, Holy Spirit. I love how that always goes with what we've been talking about the whole time. It just blows my mind every week. All right. I love you all. Happy Thanksgiving to those in the US that are
Happy
Happy
Thank you.
Thanksgiving.
and have a
See you next
Linda
week.
and everybody. Happy Thanksgiving.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Linda. Love you all. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.